Oh, hello. Welcome again to another episode of the Weekend Wrap-Up. I'm the Duke here at Ursa Aster Creations. First off, a bit of an apology. Well, sort of an apology. So this is actually late, which means it's not Friday when I'm recording this. It's actually Monday. The reason being, and so there's two reasons, two things here. It's late because I had the day off on Friday. And I know you're just saying to yourself, but Duke, you work for yourself. Like you're a small business. What, you can't take the day off? And to that I say, of course I can. I'm the boss. So, because I had a day off on Friday, I didn't do the weekend wrap up on Friday. I didn't do anything on Friday. Well, that's not true. I didn't do anything work related on Friday. So, hence why it's Monday and I'm doing the weekend wrap up. So because of that, because I don't want anybody to feel cheated or ripped off or like they're getting anything less than their hard-earned dollar, that's why this episode of the weekend wrap up is 100% free, gratis, to you, the viewer, whether you're a patron or not, whether you support me or not, whether you follow me or not. This is going up on the YouTubes for everybody to see. So if you're on the fence, it's one of the kind of cool things about doing these videos and just blasting them out there into the interwebs is that if you don't know what you're getting, if you're like, hey, I might want to subscribe to this Patreon, I might want to buy this guy a coffee, I don't know. This is the kind of stuff that you'll be getting every week. So check it out. If you like what you see, then you can go ahead and you can always subscribe to the YouTube. That's free. You can follow me on Twitter. You can follow me on Instagram. I post some cool pics of this dice stuff on Instagram and Twitter. What else do I do? You can buy me a coffee. Send me a couple bucks if you're like, hey, you know what? I don't want to get into a whole subscription thing and like it's some sort of monthly service out of my bank account. That's fine. I totally understand that. If you just want to throw me a couple bucks on coffee, great. That's awesome. Fantastic. Thank you. Or if you don't want to do any of that and you're just like, you know what? I just like these videos. That's cool. I don't need to subscribe. I don't need to like. I don't need to follow you on anything. That's cool too. But if you want to tell, one of your friends or family members or internet acquaintances who maybe is into dice or woodworking or just bearded men talking on camera, let them know and send them my way because the Duke accepts everybody. All right, so let's get to it. Basically, if this is your first time here, every week I do a weekend wrap up where I talk about, okay, what's happened in the last week, and typically this is Friday when these go up. So this is a little off kilter. Normally it would be Friday. This would go up. I talk about what I've done the week before, and then look forward to the week ahead, and then wrap it up with a question for y'all that hopefully you answer in the in the Patreon or send me a message on Twitter or Instagram or whatever. So last week a lot of stuff happened actually, even with taking the day off. So one of the things that happened was I got a vacuum chamber. So if you're a regular viewer, regular subscriber, listener, whatever you want to say, you'll know that these molds, you can see a couple of them behind me. Basically, silicone molds, they do have, whenever you're mixing anything, a liquid, you're going to introduce air, gas, into that liquid, and there's going to be little bubbles. And if it's something that's relatively, I don't know what the opposite of dense is, not dense, those bubbles will just come to the top and they'll release into the air and you'll mix them, like if it's water, let's say, you'll mix it and then the bubbles and then you've got a clear liquid. If it's viscous, meaning it's a particularly dense liquid like silicone or resin, epoxy resin, you'll mix and mix and mix, and those bubbles will just get trapped inside. Some of them will reach the top, but most of them will just kind of sit in the material. Now, when you're, obviously, if you're casting dice that are clear, or really anything that is clear out of resin, or that you can kind of see through, even if it has a color or an opacity to it, as long as it's not 100% opaque, you're going to see those bubbles in there. And sometimes, even if it is opaque, if those bubbles are near the surface, you're still going to see them. So you definitely don't want bubbles in your resin. When I first started this enterprise, a month ago. Have I really been doing this a month? Okay. A month ago, a little over a month ago, I was like, oh, well, silicone doesn't matter. I'm just making molds out of silicone. That's fine. I don't care if my molds look fancy or not. I don't care if my molds have a bunch of bubbles in them that I can see. That doesn't matter. Haha, joke's on me. Because apparently what happens with silicone is when you cast that mold, the first time you cast that mold, you pull your dice out. You're like, oh man, this looks great. I can't wait to put some resin in this, put it in my pressure pot, and make some new dice. I did that, put it in the pressure pot. Apparently silicone, when it cures, or even when it's like baked and kind of post-cured, those bubbles are still there and they'll move, especially if you're putting like 60 pounds of pressure on them. So don't get ahead of me. So I put these molds with my resin in my pressure pot. My resin cured great, but that pressure, that 55 or 60 pounds of pressure pressing on all sides of the silicone mold, took those bubbles that were kind of trapped inside and they forced them in. And because there's hollows in the mold, right? There's holes at the center. Those bubbles went into the resin. Like they didn't go into the resin, but they went to the surface and kind of popped. And then the resin that was in those holes was like, oh, here's a new hole for me to fill, and went bloop. And so when I pulled the dice out, they had all these weird little warts on them that were the bubbles from the silicone that got pressed in. So, long story short, I need a vacuum chamber to suck the air out of the silicone. So basically I mix up my silicone, introduce all these bubbles in there, right? Before I pour it into my mold form, what I have to do is take that silicone, put it in the vacuum chamber, pull the air out, create a vacuum, pull the air out so all those bubbles that are trapped inside in the liquid will to the top, pop, and then I've got a nice non-bubble, bubble-free pot of silicone, and then I pour that into my mold. Then I don't get any bubbles in there. So I pour that into my mold, cure that, take the master dice out, pour new resin, put it in the pressure pot. Then I should have 100% clean, perfect master dice. Master dice. It's the plan anyway. Hopefully it'll work. I mean, I don't see why not. Yeah, I mean, you might the next weekend wrap-up video, I'm like, well, so that didn't work, but we'll see. I'm confident that I think it's gonna work as long as I have that vacuum chamber step. So the vacuum chamber arrived, so that's one thing. Second thing is I started. So speaking of the dice that see, they're still pretty rough. But speaking of the dice that I made in the mold that had all kinds of warts on them. So these pink pretties over here, and they're a couple different colors, but they're mostly pink. These pink dice were the ones that I pulled out, I don't know, several weeks ago at this point. But I'm now polishing them. So specifically these, so these didn't have any warts on them because these are from the mold, courtesy Shop J. Holla to Shop J. For doing some outstanding work. There's a frog in my garage, y'all. That's ridiculous. How the hell did a frog get in here? Living in the woods. I'll have to open the garage door and let him out. Poor little fella. There ain't no water in here, man. What are you doing? Anyway. That was startling. So, little frog. Just a little one. But a frog nonetheless. Just saw it and whoop, whoop. So anyway, so these were fine. They came out of the nice mold. No issues with those. But these right here, these are the ones that I kind of made molds myself, and of course didn't degas them. That's what the term for pulling all the bubbles out of a liquid is. So I didn't degas them in the vacuum chamber. So then when I put them in the pressure pot, the bubbles went in, and they had all kinds of warts. So I'm sanding those down. So I'm working on that. What else am I doing? I got some new. Actually, I got a couple of new things of resin. So One is this Art and Glow. It's only an 8 ounce, so it's, of course, it's 2 parts. So it's a total of 16 ounces of resin. So this could actually do quite a bit of stuff. I don't know why I got this when I've still got of my kind of starter resin. I've still got, where's the thing? I've still got that much. So these are 8 ounce bottles too. So I've still probably got, let's see, 8 and 8 is 16. So I've still probably got 20 ounces of this stuff left. But I got more. I don't know. I don't know why. I like buying stuff. The other thing is that I went to my local hardware store. Went to my local hardware store and I was like, "Hey, y'all got resin?" And they were like, "Well, we've got glaze coat." I'm like, "What the hell is glaze coat?" They're like, "Oh, well, you know, if you're pouring a tabletop or finishing a bar or whatever, you get glaze coat." So as you'll note, 1 gallon. So it's a 1 gallon kit, meaning there's a rock in there. Meaning it's actually, so it's still 2 parts. So there's part A, 64 ounces. And then there's a part B, which is the hardener. So it's still 1-to-1. Part B, also 64 ounces. So you put them together, you get a gallon worth of resin. Or in this case, they call it glaze coat. But it's still resin, you know, it's still epoxy resin. It's not meant for, in fact, I think there's in the instructions here somewhere, they're like, don't pour it more than a 1/4 inch deep. And I'm like, I don't think that's more than a 1/4 inch deep. So we'll see how this works. This is, you know, obviously a lot more than a whole gallon is more than 16 ounces. It's in fact, what is that? Almost 10 times as much? 8 times as much? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not going to do that math right now. It's a lot. And so, you know, these bottles are like $25 or whatever on Amazon delivered. That kit from my local hardware store, which, and when I say local, I don't mean like in the city. I actually mean like, you know, 10 minutes away in the town, I guess. I don't live in a city anymore. I live in a town. That's weird. Anyway, so from that hardware store, that gallon kit is like, I think it was $75. So it was, you know, roughly 3 times the price of 3 of these, but, you know, 8 times as much. So it's you're getting 8 times as much material for only 3 times the price. So hell of a deal. Hopefully it works out. Fingers crossed. So that happened. So I think that's everything. So looking forward to the week ahead, which is today, starting today. So I'm going to fix up my printer finally. I didn't get to do that last week. So I got the leads. So that's the other thing that happened. I got the leads for the wiring for the fans. So I've just got to connect some connectors and crimp them down. And I should be able to get my printer back up and running, because really it's just the fans that I needed to rewire and create some extensions for, so I can plug those in. We'll be good to go. So I'm hopefully I'll get that done either today or tomorrow, and then yeah, get that printer back up and running. Start making some mold forms, so I can start churning out. Well, not yet. So I can start churning out molds. So then I can start churning out dice, because I need good molds to make good masters, and use those masters to make, good molds to make good masters, and then use those masters to make good, like more or less permanent molds, and then use those molds to just start churning out the dice. So hopefully I can get some, you know, the mold forms done this week, and then maybe a couple of molds made this. Song is my washing machine. So yeah, so hopefully I can get some molds made this week, and then maybe next week start churning them out. So I'm at time. I've talked way too long for this, but hopefully it was, you know, if not educational, at least entertaining. So the question for you this week is, because like I said, I like buying stuff. What do you like buying? Like, what do you like if when you need some retail therapy? What's your go-to? Like, what do you gravitate towards? Let me know. Not in the comments because I have YouTube comments turned off because it's a nightmare. But if you know hit the Patreon and find this post on Patreon and comment on there. Let me know. How do you retail therapy? All right, everyone. Until next time, be good. Take care of each other. I will talk to y'all later. Peace.